post-dating Dracula 1931 and The Mummy 1932. Today's movie placed the main character as probably the most beloved and remembered of all the creatures that rained destruction on the planet. The creators of this movie were innovators or early adopters of innovative techniques such as glass painting, miniature sets, rear projection, traveling mats, full-scale articulated creatures, and stop-motion photography to layer the action. The movement and lifelike expressions of the main character have worked to create a bond between this monster that only wants what everyone else wants, love and understanding. And of course, to be able to rip a T-Rex's jaw apart. Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors and let you know that there will be spoilers ahead. Today on Classic Movie Review, we are taking on King Kong 1933. IMDb.com rates this film a decent 7.9. RottenTomatoes.com has this film at 97% on the tomato meter and 86% audience approval. Typically, I don't focus too much on the directors. However, in this case, I think a little background on these two interesting fellows would be worth our time. Directors. Oddly, this film had two directors, both of whom were uncredited. The first, Marion C. Cooper, is better known as a producer for at least 5 John Wayne films, including Fort Apache, 1948, Three Godfathers, 1948, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, 1949, Rio Grande, 1950, The Quiet Man, 1952, and The Searchers, 1956. He was clearly one of director John Ford's favorite producers to work with, if not the best of the films mentioned above, and it may be the best. One of the most interesting of these is The Searchers 1956, which is loosely based on the search for Cynthia Parker, a kidnapped white woman who became the mother of the last Comanche chief, Juana Parker. Cooper was born in Jacksonville, Florida in 1893. Nobody's born in Florida. Cooper entered the U.S. Naval Academy and should have graduated in 1915. However, he left in his senior year. In 1916, he joined the Georgia National Guard in order to go on a punitive expedition to Mexico, which had the sole goal of capturing Pancho Villa. In 1920, Cooper volunteered as a pilot in the American Kosciuszko Squadron to support Poland in their fight against the Soviet Union in the Polish-Soviet War, February 1919 to March 1921. Wait, did we know about this? How could they have squeezed a war between World War I and World War II and not mention it during 18 years of public education? Anyway, during the fighting, Cooper was shot down and spent 9 months in a Soviet POW camp before escaping. Some places state this is where he met Ernest B. Schoensack, and others say he met while serving in World War I. I don't know if they are considering this an extension of World War I because of the closeness in time. Cooper made many films, such as The Most Dangerous Game 1932, the link's in the description, King Kong 1933, Blind Adventure 1933, Son of Kong 1933, The Fugitive 1947, and Mighty Joe Young 1949. However, everybody just wants to talk about King Kong 1933. Cooper claimed he had a strange dream about a giant ape destroying New York City and wrote it down when he awoke. He took this dream and turned it into the screenplay and the creative vision for King Kong 1933. While Cooper kept many of Kong's secrets to himself, he bragged about removing a scene where spiders ate the sailors who fell off the log as Kong rocked it back and forth. He said audiences could not get past the spiders. It stopped the movie cold. Cooper died in 1973 at the age of 79. He has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but they misspelled his name as Merriam. The second director was Ernest B. Schoensack. Schoensack was born in Iowa in 1893. He is best known for Mighty Joe Young 1949 and the sequel to King Kong 1933, Son of Kong 1933. Schoensack began as a cameraman for Keystone of the Keystone Cops fame. In World War I, he served in the Signal Corps. He worked as a journalist and relief worker following the war. Eventually, he went to work with his Army buddy, Marion C. Cooper, making documentaries for Paramount, Grass, A Nation's Battle for Life, 1925, and Chang, A Drama of the Wilderness, 1927. During this time, Schoensack met his future wife and was married. The tale of Kong is somewhat autobiographical for the two men who were filming in exotic locations. Schoensack went solo for a time and worked for RKO from 1932 to 1935, directing documentaries. When he began working with Cooper on King Kong 1933, he was initially uncredited. Jones-Sack didn't direct a lot of films before World War II, but one of them is Dr. Cyclops 1940. During World War II, he injured his eyes while testing photographic equipment at a high altitude. The only movie he directed after the war was the 8-flick Mighty Joe Young 1949. Jones-Sack died in 1979. Actors. Fay Wray played the lovely Ann Darrow, the girl who made the big ape lose his bananas. She is wearing a blonde wig in this movie rather than showing her dark hair. It was the only way she would stand out against Kong's fur. Fay Wray was born in Alberta, Canada in 1907. When she was very young, her family moved to Arizona and then to California before breaking apart. As a result of the divorce, Fay was raised in poverty. However, by the age of 16, she was obtaining bit parts in films. Some films like Gasoline Love 1923 were so bad it would take years for her to get another part. She made The Coast Patrol in 1925, another poor film, but it got her some attention. Ray made 4 films in 1926 and only 3 in 1927. Around this time, natural selection was taking place in Hollywood, and actors and actresses who didn't have vocal talents were being weeded out by the onset of talkies. There was no problem for Ray. One of her best films was The Most Dangerous Game, 1932, and like I said, there's a link below. In 1933, she made 11 films, including Dr. X, 1932, which I have a link below for, Mystery of the Wax Museum, 1933, Ann Carver's Profession, 1933, and The Vampire Bat, 1933, and there's a link below for that. However, she is known chiefly for King Kong, 1933. Ray made 11 films in 1934. Can you name one? The best of these films are Once to Every Woman, 1934, Viva Villa, 1934, and Alias Bulldog Drummond, 1935. Suddenly, work became harder for her to find. After she made Not a Ladies' Man, 1942, Ray was not in another film until Treasure of the Golden Condor, 1953. She was given some real dogs to star in through the 1950s. One notable film noir that stands out is Crime of Passion, 1957. Ray made her last appearance on television in 1980 and died in 2004. This incredible talent was never really given a chance to see how good she could be. Ray stated that director Cooper said he would cast her with the tallest, dark-haired leading man in Hollywood. Ray thought he was talking about Clark Gable. Of course, he was referring to the 25-foot-tall ape. Robert Armstrong played the role of director and filmmaker Carl Denham. Armstrong was born in Michigan in 1890. The family moved to Washington on the way to find gold in Alaska, but stopped a little short. When World War I broke out, Armstrong served in the infantry. Following the war, Armstrong attended the University of Washington, but left shortly before graduation to work in a theater troupe run by James Gleason. They worked all over the country, and in 1926, Armstrong was spotted by a talent scout while acting in a play. His first film was in 1927, and he made 9 more in 1928. Armstrong took his friend James Gleason along for the ride. When sound became typical in movies, Armstrong became a big star because he could say his lines in a rapid-fire style with a strong voice. In 1932, Armstrong met Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schoensack, and he went to work for RKO. The two directors turned out films that were made under Kong-like conditions. Armstrong was in The Most Dangerous Game, 1932, followed by King Kong, 1933, and Son of Kong, 1933. Next, the director had Armstrong in a romance, Blind Adventure, 1933. He was offered better roles such as Palooka, 1934, G-Man, 1935, Man of Conquest, 1939, My Favorite Spy, 1942, Blood on the Sun, 1945, and finally Mighty Joe Young, 1949. With film work slowing, Armstrong turned to television in the 1950s. He died in 1973. The love interest for Ray, not counting the big ape, is John Driscoll, played by Bruce Cabot. Cabot had a career that lasted over 30 years, mostly playing tough guys. He also managed to appear in Son of Kong, 1933, and Mighty Joe Young, 1949. You all know Bruce Cabot whether you know it or not. From King Kong, 1933 to Last of the Mohicans, 1936, Cabot was on the Star Trek. Somehow, he got derailed and moved from a leading man to a sidekick role. Cabot was cast as the heel in many movies during the 1930s. He played a mobster in Let 'Em Have It, 1935, and the revengeful Magua in The Last of the Mohicans, 1936. This was not the only time he played a Native American. He was cast as Indian tracker Sam Sharpnose in Big Jake, 1971, the links below, and delivered great lines like, "I don't hunt Indians." Cabot joined the Army Air Corps and worked in intelligence during World War II. At least a part of his job involved smuggling gold from the Middle East. Cabot auditioned for the role of the Ringo Kid in Stagecoach 1939, the links below. John Wayne was eventually cast in the John Ford Western, and he became one of the most important actors in Hollywood. Cabot was reduced to supporting roles from then on out. This clearly illustrates the main point of On Any Given Sunday, 1999, when Al Pacino gives the life as a game of inches speech.
The margin for error is so small, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it.
When the Duke and Cabot were cast in Angel and the Bad Man, 1947, there's a link below, they became drinking buddies and continued this both on and off screen. Cabot was a regular in John Wayne films such as Angel and the Bad Man, 1947, The Comancheros, 1961, Atari, 1962, McClintock, 1963, In Harm's Way, 1965, The War Wagon, 1967, The Green Beret, 1968, Hellfighters, 1968, The Undefeated, 1969, Chisholm, 1970, and Big Jake, 1971, a movie that has more quotable lines than an episode of Game of Thrones. And there are links for all of those below. Cabot did make some good movies without John Wayne, which include today's film King Kong 1933, Let 'Em Have It 1935, The Last of the Mohicans 1936, The Prisoner of Shark Island 1936, which I have a link below, and Cat Ballou 1965, which also has a link below. Cabot died at the age of 68 from cancer. Frank Reacher played Ship Captain Engelhorn. Reacher was born in Bavaria, Germany on December 2nd, 1875. Hey, I was born in Bavaria, Germany on December 2nd, but a different year. He started working in German theater, moved to London theater, and finally to the U.S. in 1899. In the U.S., he continued his stage work, moving to Hollywood in 1915, where he acted and directed. From 1921 to 1926, he left movies and returned to stage work. He came back to Hollywood and through the 1930s worked in a lot of anti-Nazi films as well as horror films. With over 200 film credits, he is still best known for playing the ship's captain in King Kong 1933 and the same role in Son of Kong 1933. There are two Universal horror films that are of note. The Mummy's Tomb 1942, the link below, and its sequel, The Mummy's Ghost 1944, and link below. Director Reginald Leborg, being interviewed in 1989, said that during the filming of the sequel, Lon Chaney Jr. got a little too far into character and almost choked Reacher to death. Reacher retired from acting in 1951, and he died in 1965. The native chief was played by Noble Johnson. Great name. Johnson was a childhood friend of Lon Chaney Sr., star of Phantom of the Opera 1925, and father of the best wolf man ever, Lon Chaney Jr. Johnson was an African-American who had a great career playing bit parts and side characters of various races. His roles include Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments 1923, The Thief of Baghdad 1924, and The Mummy 1932. There's a link below. A Mexican actor, Steve Clemente or Clemento, played the Witch King, or as we might say, Witch Doctor. He also reprised this role in Son of Kong 1933. The great Native American Olympian, Jim Thorpe, was uncredited as a theater goer in Kong's New York debut. Sailor Vincent was a welterweight boxer with 54 wins, 25 losses, and 24 ties. That's a lot of ties. He became an actor and a stuntman. In this movie, he was uncredited as a member of the ship's crew. Vincent shows up in a lot of films. Victor Wong played a small uncredited role as Charlie the Chinese cook. Wong was born in California in 1906. His first significant role was King Kong 1933. The director liked him so much he brought him back for Son of Kong the next year. Other movies include bits in War Correspondent 1932, Lost Horizon 1937, and The Phantom Submarine 1940. He made a career playing these bit parts and died in 1972. Story. The movie begins with a fake old Arab proverb. It goes, "And the prophet said, and lo, the beast looked upon the face of beauty, and it stayed its hand from killing. And from that day, it was as one dead." It is 1933 and the country is in the throes of the Great Depression. Filmmaker Carl Dennison, Robert Armstrong, is waiting on a ship in New York Harbor. He has an exotic destination in mind for his next film, but he is having trouble finding a leading lady. Denham has the ship and film crew ready to sail. Ship Captain Englehorn, Frank Reacher, wants to know why they have gas bombs. Denham is only concerned with getting to his destinations before the monsoons, a destination he is keeping secret from everyone. However, his regular talent agent, Charles Weston, Sam Hardy, refused to provide him with a female actor for fear of her safety. The first mate, John Driscoll, Bruce Cabot, comes in and he is a cranky guy. The slightly shifty Denham has also checked every other agent in town as well. Finally, Denham decides he wants it done right, so he personally goes to search for a lead actress. After looking around in the poor parts of town, he sees a starving Ann Darrow, Fay Ray, trying to steal an apple. When she gets caught, he buys her out of trouble. She faints from lack of food. He takes her to a small diner where he feeds her and pitches his adventure. She's no dummy, and she agrees to take the deal only after she recognizes who Denham is. The ship, named Venture, leaves New York Harbor at sunrise. Like I said, Driscoll is a mean guy and he swings his hand around, rapping Ann on the chin. He thinks women should not be on ships. The ship travels for 6 weeks towards its mysterious terminus. Ann is happy to be traveling and spends time looking at the view and making friends with Charlie, the Chinese cook, Victor Wong. Over time, Driscoll and Ann become a little closer, but not too much. There's a small monkey on the ship that is very friendly to Ann. When Denham walks up and sees Ann with the monkey, her remarks are Beauty and the Beast. Denham sends Ann to dress in the costume. Driscoll says he is worried about Ann. Denham says he has enough trouble without a shipboard romance. He also foreshadows how a big hard-boiled egg gets a look at a pretty face and he cracks up and goes sappy. Denham then lays out the plot for the live-action movie. It's a big tough guy who sees a beauty and loses it all. Driscoll and Denham get called up to Captain Englehorn because they have reached the location near Sumatra where Denham will reveal their destination. Denham produces a map showing an uncharted island that he has picked up from another sailor. On the map, Denham shows a small channel through the reef, a village on the land, a large wall, and Skull Mountain. Like a man of his time, he doesn't give the people living there credit for building the wall. He also mentions Kong, and Captain Englehorn is aware of the myth. Later, Denham meets with Ann, who is wearing a dress called the Beauty and the Beast dress. Denham practices filming Ann. In response to a question from Ann, Denham says he does all of the camera work himself since an operator let him down once. Denham has Ann pretend to look up and be horrified by something she sees. On cue, Ann lets out a blood-curdling scream. Driscoll is worried about what she is really going to see. The Venture slowly moves through the fog. Englehorn, Driscoll, Denham, and Ann wait on the deck as the sailor takes soundings. They hear drums and think it's breakers until Denham sets them straight. In the morning, Skull Island and the wall can clearly be seen from the moored ship. Englehorn, Driscoll, Denham, Ann, and a dozen men go ashore. They bring the camera, rifles, and gas bombs. As they get closer, it is clear that the part of the island where the village is located is relatively small and most of the island is behind the wall. The landing party makes it to the island and is not seen by the villagers. The group moves to the back of the village and still doesn't see anyone. They get a good view of the wall, and Driscoll mentions seeing Angkor Wat. They hear the natives chanting and the group moves forward. They hear the word Kong. Denham peeks through the bushes and sees most of the villagers watching men in gorilla suits dancing in front of the gate. I want to stop here and talk about the wall and the gate. The wall seems to be about 100 feet tall and is built to keep a 25-foot tall climbing ape out. The original movie poster says the ape was 60 feet tall. They also installed a 25-foot tall gate so they could place their lunar-inspired sacrifices when a 6-foot tall gate would have done. Why make a gate big enough for Kong to get out? The dancing gorillas are moving around a sacred maiden wearing flowers as the powerful chief, Noble Johnson, looks on. Denham starts filming, and it is not long before they are spotted. Denham has everyone come out and show themselves rather than running away. Captain Englehorn can speak a little of their language. The chief demands that they leave. Englehorn asks what is happening, and the chief replies that the young girl is Kong's bride. The witch doctor, or medicine man, Steve Clemento, runs forward to the chief. He says the ceremony is spoiled by the presence of outsiders. The chief, the witch doctor, and some spear bearers come forward, but Denham holds his ground. The chief sees the golden-haired woman, describing Anne with her blonde hair. He wants to buy her as a gift for Kong. He will trade 6 of his women for Anne. As Denham instructs, they say they will come back in the morning to make friends. They retreat to the venture, but act cool while doing it. That night, Anne, unable to sleep, hangs around on the ship deck. Driscoll is worried about Anne and admits to her that he loves her. They get all kissy-faced, but the captain calls Driscoll to the bridge. Quietly, a canoe with some of the natives comes alongside the ship. They quickly grab Anne and take her back to the island. Denham sees torches in the distant village. Driscoll goes to the back of the deck and finds Anne is missing. Charlie the cook finds a native necklace and they realize Anne has been kidnapped. The crew loads up their weapons and heads for the island. In the village, they are drumming and waving torches. The wooden bolt on the oversized gate is removed. Just beyond the gate are 2 columns where they tie the struggling Anne. She is left inside as a giant gate is closed behind her. The natives line the top of the wall, waiting for the show. They ring a giant gong, growling, giant steps, and breaking branches are heard. Finally, almost halfway through the movie, Kong, the giant gorilla, is revealed. Anne screams in terror. Kong unties one of her hands, and Anne falls free from the altar. Kong picks her up and growls for the crowd as they yell their approval. The ship's crew, with Driscoll in the lead, make it to the village. At the gate, Driscoll sees a giant ape carrying Anne. They unbolt the gate. Captain Inglehorn stays with half the men at the gate, while Denham, Driscoll, and the other half follow Kong's trail, which consists of broken trees and giant footprint. The rescuers are attacked by a stegosaurus, but they beat it back with gas bombs and bullets. This is a great use of rear projection to put the actors with the stop-motion animal. Then they come to a swamp. Driscoll has them build a raft to get across. In the middle of the swamp, they are set upon by an apathosaurus that tips their raft. They save some of the gas bombs. This vegetarian dino kills a few of the men. The behemoth chases them from the swamp onto the land. One guy trips and then climbs a tree, stopping right at mouth height before he is eaten. Ahead, Kong crosses a big log over a ravine. He places Anne on the top of the tree and catches the men as they are crossing the log. Driscoll goes down a vine and hides in a cave. Kong shakes the others off the log before dropping the whole log into the ravine to kill the last. Originally, the men who fell into the ravine were attacked by giant spiders and other things. However, this freaked out test audiences, so it was removed. As Kong tries to reach Driscoll, some kind of creature crawls up a vine to attack, but Driscoll cuts the vine. A Tyrannosaurus Rex approaches Anne, and she begins to scream. Kong leaves Driscoll to protect Anne. Kong and the T-Rex get to fighting, and at first it goes bad for Kong. During the fight, Anne's tree is knocked over, and she is pinned under it. Kong jumps on the T-Rex's back like a monkey.
Chip, I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
Like a spider monkey!
And rips its jaw apart, killing the beast. When Kong turns back to Anne, she screams, thinking she is going to be eaten. Driscoll climbs back up on the Kong side of the ravine. On the other side, Denham is still alive. Denham goes back for help, while Driscoll continues to chase Kong. Denham makes it back to Captain Inglehorn. The gate crew has driven the natives away with gunfire. The group decides to head out at dawn with more gas bombs. Kong takes Anne to his lair inside of Skull Mountain. He puts her on a ledge, and a plesiosaurus comes after her. Kong makes quick work of the clinging creature. Driscoll has made it to the cave as well and watches from behind a rock. Kong takes Anne through one of the eyes of Skull Mountain to an outside ledge. He beats his chest because he is proud of his day's work. Anne passes out. Kong takes this passed out girl and begins to take her clothes off. No. Driscoll knocks over a rock and Kong leaves Anne to investigate. Outside, a pterodon grabs Anne, but Kong arrives in time to kill it. Why can't you hear a pterodon go to the bathroom? Because the P is silent. Sorry. Driscoll races up and escapes with Anne down the cliff face. They fall into the water. Driscoll and Anne make it back before the other group heads out. Denham wants to capture Kong. Everyone else is not so enthusiastic. Kong makes this irrelevant when he attacks the gate. The natives come out to help hold the gate. Kong snaps the bolt and breaks through. Everyone scatters. Kong crushes a few stragglers and kills some spear guys on a platform. He wipes out a few more stragglers, including grinding one guy into the mud. At the beach, Denham throws gas bombs, knocking Kong out. He then says, he's always been king of his world, but we'll teach him fear. We're millionaires, boys. I'll share it with all of you. Why, in a few months, his name will be up in lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world.
We're millionaires, boys. I'll share it with all of you. Why, in a few months it'll be up in lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
They skip all the technical details of getting Kong back to New York. The next scene is set in the city as they unveil the eighth wonder of the world. The crowd doesn't know what the eighth wonder is. Driscoll and Ann are dressed in fancy clothes. The press guys pick up the Beauty and the Beast angle. Denham reveals Kong on the stage chained. He then brings out Ann and tells that she is engaged to Driscoll. Kong watches from above. Denham calls the press forward and they begin snapping flash photographs of Ann. As the ape growls, Denham says the chains are chrome steel. It's a different song when Kong breaks his chain. Driscoll and Ann flee while Kong goes on a rampage to look for Ann. Kong bites people, climbs a building, picks up a woman, and drops her when he sees it's not Ann. Driscoll and Ann go into a hotel room and sit by a window right where Kong can see them. He knocks out Driscoll and grabs Ann. Kong makes his way across the city. At one point, he derails an elevated train. He kills it like it was a prehistoric animal trying to harm Ann. Finally, Kong finds the highest point in town, which at the time was the Empire State Building. He still has Ann in one hand. Driscoll and Denham call for airplanes. 4 Curtiss Helldiver biplanes approach the building. Kong places Ann on the deck, and the planes begin to attack using their machine guns. One plane gets too close and he swats it down in what is a real applause line for the underdog. Kong is taking a lot of fire and bleeding badly. He picks up Ann for one last look before putting her back down. Still being shot, Kong lets go of his grip and falls to his death. Driscoll makes it to Ann. Denham pushes through the police line around the dead ape, and a cop says, "Well, Denham, the airplanes got him." Denham replies, "Oh no, it wasn't the airplanes, it was Beauty that killed the beast." Conclusion. This movie set the bar for future creature features. As stated earlier, they adopted or innovated the filming techniques of glass painting, miniature sets, rear projection, traveling mats, full-scale articulated creatures, and stop-motion photography to layer the action. When the movie was shown in 1933, the audience had never seen anything like it. The techniques were refined and used in movies until computer graphics came in the 1980s with movies like Tron 1982 and The Last Starfighter 1984. There's a link below. This movie has been remade many times, including 1976, 2005, and 2017, and there are many variations of the story, including all that multiverse crap. I was fond of the 76 version because it used attack helicopters, and of course, it co-starred the Dude. Although some are visually striking, none has matched the original. If I say King Kong, and you think of 1976 or the 2005 version, or even the 2017 version, you clearly have never seen a good copy of the 1933 version. The special effects artist was Willis O'Brien. While his work was groundbreaking and set the standard for the future, unfortunately, he is probably best remembered only for working with Ray Harryhausen on Mighty Joe Young 1949. Harryhausen went on to do the special effects for Earth vs. the Flying Saucer 1956, there's a link below, The Seven Voyages of Sinbad 1958, Jason and the Argonauts 1963, amazing, and Clash of the Titans 1981. Quoting Cinefix.com, quote, "There are many details about the production of King Kong that are not available at present for publication. For whenever you ask Marion C. Cooper or his associates a question that trespasses on their secret processes, they invariably reply, 'It was all done with mirrors,'" unquote. O'Brien and crew could make 25 feet of stop motion per day, which represents about 20 seconds of film times. Many people have maligned this film, bestowing hidden meanings to the tale. One in particular states that Kong represents the plight of the African Americans brought to this country in chains and being exploited by Anglos. Golden and Turner made it clear that Kong was no darker than any gorilla. O'Brien gave the ape his expressive face, borrowing from his own. Cooper and Schoensack gave it adventure, and the actual experience by Steve Clementi contributed to the story. Clementi was a Yaqui Indian and had a knife-throwing act in vaudeville. When he needed an assistant, he searched for a hungry woman, just as Denham did at the beginning of the film. In the biplane scenes, director Cooper and Schoensack were filmed attacking the beast. Over 70 years later, in the overhyped version of King Kong 2005, Peter Jackson cast himself and makeup man Rick Baker in the same scene. Jackson most likely did it as a tribute. However, I can tell you for certain that the reference was lost among most 2005 viewers. The original King Kong, 1933, saved RKO from bankruptcy and, in a way, saved all of the great films to follow. Thanks for the film noirs and westerns. World famous short summary: country boy goes to town and falls for a big city girl. Things end badly for the boy. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors. Okay, there'll be some boxes up here. One box will be a film related to this film, and the other will be a playlist related to this genre.